All right, so this chapter opens up with a flashback to the Heian era. Like, finally, we're seeing the most hyped up time in the Jujutsu Kaisen lore here, which is like around 1,000 years ago, more or less. And we see like these monk-looking dudes. I don't know exactly what they are. I'm sure somebody in the comments knows, but they're talking about an apparent harvest festival that's going on at this time. And they're like, why do we have to pray to Sukuna for our crops? And then we get the explanation of why they have to do that. And it's like, have you forgotten the elite warriors in the northern Fujiwara's forces, known as the Sun, Moon, and Star Squad, were ripped apart, and so were the 5 empty generals. So yeah, we have to like appease to Sukuna and show that we have no ill will, because he'll slaughter us all if we don't. So I think this might be the moment where Sukuna rose to power, possibly, or where he really made a name for himself, because it's implied here, or at least the wording, at least to me, makes it seem like this is like his big breakout. Like the first big thing that he made himself known about was taking out the Sun, Moon, and Star Squad and the 5 empty generals. But before we go any further into that, let's just break down what they are, because we've heard them mentioned before in the series by Uro, the sky manipulating woman that Akotsu fought back in Sendai colony. She was a member of the Sun, Moon, and Star Squad. Now, I don't know if she was one of the 5 empty generals. It's possible that she was, but if she was, I guess she would have been killed here. Or maybe this is where she was defeated, and maybe that's how she became a cursed object to be later reincarnated, because that's obviously what happened with her in the Culling game. So another interesting thing about Uro is in chapter 178, when she's like having her, the climax of her fight against Akotsu, she says like, "Are you that afraid of me becoming someone?" She's like, "You Fujiwara are always in my way." Like, this is another thing that was happening during that fight. Like, Uro kept claiming that Akotsu was from the quote-unquote Fujiwara clan, which again goes back to the beginning of this chapter, because there's like, hey, have you forgotten elite warriors in the northern Fujiwara's forces? So if Uro was a part of the Sun, Moon, and Star Squad, then she was affiliated with Fujiwara, but according to how she's treating Akotsu here, she has resentment towards the Fujiwara. Also, let me keep in mind, there is no confirmation that Akotsu comes from these Fujiwaras. The only direct ancestor that we know of Akotsu is the one that he shares with Gojo by the name of Michizane Sugawara, who is also apparently one of the big 3 vengeful spirits. But keep that name in mind, because I'm sure he's going to come back before the series is over. Hey guys, but real quick, I just want to talk about gamer subs, because I love this stuff. I take it almost every day before I have to do the work that I have to do with YouTube, the editing, the research, all that stuff. It helps so much, because it doesn't just have caffeine in it like coffee or whatever. It also has nootropics, which make me feel so focused, energized, and calm all at the same time. Really great stuff. Now, I don't go to school, and I know that a lot of you do, so this would definitely will help with your studying and anything else you have to do. And I know we're coming towards finals, so I know things are getting pretty stressful for you guys, and if anything can help, it will be gamer subs. Check out their mango meta flavor, blowhole blast, misfits melon, dragon fruit, citrus lemonade. They've got tons of flavors, and they're all fantastic. So check out the link in the description, and make sure you use code BIGZ. That way it'll give you a great discount, and you'll be helping me out too. Thanks, guys. But just wrapping up this Uro and the Sun, Moon, and Star Squad thing, she also says in chapter 178, after the Sun, Moon, and Star Squad is explained, she says, "Yet that person gave me a name to execute me as a proxy for that person's crimes of killing a member of the same clan." So I know that's typical, confusing, weird gege wording, but I think this probably has something to do with Sukuna, maybe. And I think this is why Uro is affiliated with him, because we know for sure that Uro knows who Sukuna is. Like when he invaded Sendai colony a couple chapters back and jobbed the crap out of Ryu, rest in peace, she was like, it's the king of curses. So whatever she's talking about here, definitely, at least in my opinion, has something to do with Sukuna. And we might see Uro come back as like a disciple of Sukuna, possibly. But anyway, back to the chapter. So we're also seeing Yorozu in this flashback, and Yorozu is being hyped up here, not as much as Sukuna, of course, but it's getting the point across that she's pretty darn elite, because it says that hick, which I don't even know if I could say that on YouTube, in Aizu once committed similar acts of savagery, referring to Yorozu here. So that means that she did something similar to taking down like 5 empty generals, or just the Sun, Moon, and Star Squad. I mean, I don't know if she literally did that. It just says committed similar acts of savagery, and we already knew that Yorozu was like beyond powerful, like easily top 5 strongest sorcerers we've seen in the series so far, at least based on what she was able to do against Sukuna. But we see her also coming to this festival where everyone is like praying to Sukuna for good crops. You know, that typical cliche, you know, ancient pastime thing that people used to do apparently. I think they still might do it in some cultures. But we see Sukuna in all his glory, and he's amazing looking. Like, he's freaking huge too, like twice the size of a normal person for sure. Obviously has the forearms and the messed up side of his right face with the 4 eyes. And, you know, we speculated before that Sukuna might be a fusion of 2 people. Like, maybe he was 2 brothers at once that underwent a similar ritual that we saw when they were making the bath for Sukuna, like all of those bugs and stuff in that basket that were leaking into that pool or the bath. Could be something similar with Sukuna as to why he looks like this and became so powerful. But going back to what I was saying about that was like Sukuna's breakout. It's possible that like after Sukuna like achieved his level of power that he has with the 4 arms and, you know, allegedly fusing with a person or whatever he did to become this strong, maybe his first big breakout performance after achieving that level of power was taking down the Sun, Moon, and Star Squad as well as the 5 empty generals. But Yorozu comes up to Sukuna at this festival and it's like love at first sight for her. She looks into the gross half of his face and she's just overcome with like emotion, and she just comes up and starts hugging like his head. And this obviously makes Urarame like really jealous because we know that Urarame has feelings for Sukuna. I don't know if they're like romantic, but you know, she has feelings for Sukuna. Obviously she's like ride or die for him, and if anyone is showing a similar level of emotion, she's obviously not gonna like it. And she like fires off on Yorozu, and we see like the ice forming, I guess, but she's also being slashed across the chest, and I suppose this is Sukuna doing it. You know, just super fast activating cleave, slicing her through the chest, I guess, but not enough to kill her. Or maybe he was trying to kill her, because we saw before when he was using a similar approach on Ryu, Ryu didn't die, but he was trying to kill Ryu. Ryu was just more powerful than Sukuna had assumed. So it's possible this is happening here, or maybe Sukuna didn't want to kill Yorozu. Maybe he, I don't know, took her lightly, because he does realize that her admiration is genuine. But that's pretty much where the flashback ends. Like, she gets slashed and she's like, oh, I knew it, what a painful wound, which goes back into, you know, why she was always demanding that Sukuna uses Malevolent Shrine against her, and he just refused and kept using the 10 Shadows. But I don't know if their history goes any more than this. I mean, I think it does, because they seem to be more formal, like when they're talking in the current time. So I assume that it didn't end here, and Yorozu, like, kept having moments with Sukuna, kept trying to be his Urarame, if you will. But we come back to the present, and Yorozu is activating like her final attack, I guess. Maybe this is possibly her ultimate move with her construction curse technique, aside from the domain expansion. And she makes a perfect sphere with her proprietary liquid material that she manipulates with construction. And the significance of this is that, as it's said, it's a perfect sphere, which is on paper kind of impossible, at least from a physics standpoint, I guess. Like in real life, I don't think you'd be able to replicate what she's doing here with her current technology. But it has no contact area, so it generates infinite pressure. So yeah, I don't think we can I don't think we can make this yet. But this is like Gege coming back to tapping into the Togashi part of his mind, because this is very much like a Nen ability from Hunter x Hunter, which, you know, Jujutsu Kaisen writing has from time to time, but this more so feels like that. But it's so perfect that it's untouchable. And if you would like any more information into how this works, at least on a realistic standpoint, I can show you some tweets here from Lightning, who is a great Jujutsu Kaisen content creator on Twitter. But not only does she make this perfect sphere, she also forms her domain expansion, which is threefold affliction, where they go into like this white area with like these mushroom uterus things flying around. But the way that she's using her domain here is more so as a device to manipulate her perfect sphere, because now that the perfect sphere is inside of her domain, it becomes a guaranteed hit, which is like an incredible strategy. Like, I really love the way that Gege is crafting these super high level jujitsu battles, because like this is how you would essentially use it in like a video game or a card game or some kind of strategy game. Like if you were really high level with understanding techniques like this, you would be like, oh, well, I could just use the perfect sphere in combination with my domain expansion, because then it becomes a guaranteed hit, which is like, you know, a first turn perfect kill in most situations, of course. But she's going against Sukuna, who is the Michael Jordan of jiu-jitsu, so it's not going to be that simple. And his trump card to getting out of this impossible situation is not countering her with his own domain, which, you know, typically a sorcerer would probably do, or, you know, wicker basket or simple domain. No, he just summons Maharaga, finally summons him. He had Maharaga's Dharma Chakra like hanging over his head for a couple chapters here, and we're like, what's he doing with it? But I guess he was kind of just putting it on standby. Like that's just a little pre-buffer that you can use for Maharaga, and then you just have him instantly on standby to summon him, because he does that. But he doesn't look as big as we thought. He kind of just looks like regular Maharaga, which is interesting. We thought he would be like a kaiju or something, but no. And he friggin' one-shots the perfect sphere with the sword on his arm, because the sword on his arm is always emitting positive cursed energy, like it's encased in it. And positive cursed energy basically shuts down almost all jujitsu, because most of jujitsu is just comprised of negative cursed energy, which positive just destroys. Like we saw when Akotsu blew positive cursed energy into Kuro Urushi's mouth, he just exploded. So understandable that Maharaga can just destroy this perfect sphere here, despite how hyped up it's been, because at the core of it, it is comprised of negative cursed energy. And then he, I don't know, does something to defeat Yorozu here. We don't really see what happens. I guess Maharaga just cuts her, and then that's it. And then her domain breaks, and Sukuna is just, you know, stepping over her, and he's like, you know, your stuff's good, but, you know, I just figured it out. And, you know, it's just unfortunate that you're going against me. And this makes Yorozu happy, because Sukuna actually knows stuff about Yorozu. Like, he explained to her how her stuff works, meaning that he cares enough to at least analyze it, keep it in his mind, and that made Yorozu happy. And her last dying gift to Sukuna is something that we don't get to see. She says, here, this is for you, and she constructs something with her curse technique. And this is obviously paralleling to what happened with Maki and Mai, because before Mai died, she constructed the soul-splitting sword for Maki. And I guess Yorozu is doing something similar here. I mean, I don't think she's making a soul-splitting sword, but she probably is making some kind of curse tool for Sukuna, or something that will aid him. Which is interesting, because it's obviously going to come back into play later on. And this is possibly what Yorozu's big ultimate purpose was, aside from becoming Sumiki. And that brings us to the end of the chapter, because remember, Yorozu took over Sumiki to be reincarnated as Sukuna took over Megumi. And Sukuna's whole big thing here was to kill Yorozu, who is in Sumiki's body, so that this would destroy the will or the soul of Megumi, because technically it would be Megumi who killed her. Even though it wasn't, it was Maharaga who kills her. So I guess this is kind of like a loophole to not directly put it on Megumi, but we see this visualization, or maybe this is literally what is happening within the subconscious or the inner jujitsu world. But Megumi kind of just sinks to the bottom of wherever he is, meaning that his soul is now suppressed. And Sukuna has full control, full reign over Megumi's body now. And I don't know if this necessarily means that Megumi is dead, but it is possible that he is, guys. And I just want to put that out there, that Jujutsu Kaisen is not, you know, the most traditional of series. Yes, it does have a lot of cliches to it, and it does follow a lot of the same beats and storylines and cliches of other stories, but it still does subvert expectations from time to time. And I think this might be another one of them, possibly, because, you know, Nobara kind of did die too. Although, you know, it's kind of like Schrodinger's Nobara at this point, but it's possible that Megumi and Nobara were supposed to die from the beginning. And maybe the true big three, you know, main characters are Maki, Akotsu, and Yuji. Yuji being the main character, of course, but maybe that's what it was always supposed to be. And their counter big three is Sukuna, Kenjaku, and Urarame. You know, I'd like to make another video about this with some other Jujutsu Kaisen creators, I think in like 2 weeks when Jump goes on break. But that's pretty much it for the video today, guys. Let me know what you think about Megumi in the comments. Is he dead? Is he coming back? Let me know. And if you like the video, please give it a like. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great day. I'll see you in the next one.